The night was cold and silent on the broken space outpost. Only the soft hum of old machines and the flicker of red warning lights kept the place alive. Eli, a human engineer, walked through the narrow metal hallway carrying a toolbox in one hand and a dim lantern in the other. He had been alone for months, fixing broken generators and forgotten systems left from the old war. He liked the silence and it kept his mind busy and his heart quiet. But that night something was different. He heard footsteps, soft, uneven, light, like someone trying not to be heard. He froze. His lantern's glow fell across the dusty floor, but there was nothing there. He slowly turned toward the storage bay. The noise came again. Tap, tap, tap. Then a small shadow moved behind the generator. Eli frowned. "Who's there?" His voice echoed across the empty walls. No answer. He stepped closer. The shadow shifted again. He raised the lantern, and his breath caught. A girl, young, maybe 16 or 17, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly under the light. Her silver eyes glowed softly like stars, and her dark hair was tangled and dirty. She looked scared but not wild. She wasn't human, she was alien, one of the same kind who once fought against humanity. "Stay back," Eli said quietly, holding out his hand. "I won't hurt you." The girl trembled. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak but couldn't. Then, in a soft, shaky voice, she whispered something that froze him where he stood. "You smell like my father." Eli blinked, confused. "What did you say?" Her eyes filled with tears. "You smell like my father," she repeated, stepping closer. Eli felt a chill crawl up his spine. He didn't understand. Her people never mixed with humans. There were no records of contact, not like this. He glanced around. She looked thin, exhausted, wearing torn clothes that once might have been white. She clutched a broken pendant in her hand. He sighed. "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." She didn't move. "Please," she said, voice trembling, "don't send me away." Something in her tone, fear, sadness, made him lower his guard. He looked at her again, this time not as an alien but as a lost child in a war-torn world. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head but kept staring at him, as if she was searching for something in his face. Eli hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small packet of ration food. He placed it on the floor between them. "Here, eat this." She stared at it for a moment, then crawled forward slowly, still watching his eyes. She picked up the food, sniffed it carefully, and then began to eat in small bites, her hands shaking. Eli sat down across from her, keeping his distance. "What's your name?" She looked up, her mouth still full. "Lyra," she said quietly. "Lyra," he repeated. "All right, Lyra, I'm Eli." She nodded but didn't smile. When she finished eating, she wrapped her arms around her knees and stared at the floor. The silence stretched between them. The old station creaked in the wind. Eli leaned back. "How did you get here?" She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, "I ran away." "From where?" "From my people." Her voice broke. "They said humans killed my father. But he wasn't one of them. He smelled like you." Eli frowned. He didn't know what that meant. "Smell?" She nodded. "Humans smell of fire and metal. My father did too. He fixed things like you." That hit him strangely deep. "You mean your father was human?" "I don't know," she said softly. "No one believes me. They say it's impossible. But when I smelled you, I knew." Eli felt his heart tighten. This girl was alone, hunted, maybe delusional, or maybe telling the truth about something buried long ago. He stood up. "You can stay here for tonight," he said finally. "But only until morning." Her head snapped up. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. "It's freezing outside and you look like you haven't eaten in days." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, shy, but real. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave her an old blanket and pointed to a corner near the warm pipes. She curled up quietly, clutching the blanket and her pendant. Eli turned off the lantern and lay on his own bunk across the room, but he couldn't sleep. Her words kept echoing in his mind. "You smell like my father." He thought of the long-forgotten war between their species, of the soldiers who vanished, and of the unrecorded missions deep in alien territory. Could one of them have stayed behind? Could a human and alien have shared a life together? He didn't know. But he knew one thing: this girl's eyes held something real. Fear, hope, and a strange familiarity that made his chest ache. Outside, the stars burned cold and silent. Somewhere in the darkness, a hidden truth was waiting. One that connected a lost alien girl and a lonely human engineer in ways neither could yet understand. And as Eli drifted into uneasy sleep, Lyra whispered softly from the corner, as if speaking to herself, "I finally found you, Father." The next morning, the outpost looked quiet under the pale light of a distant sun. The cold metal corridors glowed with a faint blue hue, and the hum of the generators filled the silence. Eli woke up to find Lyra still there, sitting cross-legged near the pipes, watching him carefully. Her eyes looked brighter now, though there was still sadness behind them. "Did you sleep?" Eli asked, rubbing his eyes. She nodded. "A little. It's warmer here than out there." He handed her a metal cup filled with recycled water. She drank slowly, like someone who hadn't had clean water in days. He watched her, small, fragile, yet with an odd strength in her eyes. "You said you ran away from your people," he began. "Why?" Lyra looked down, her fingers brushing over the broken pendant she always held. "Because they wanted to use me," she whispered. "They said I carry something from my father. They wanted to study me. They said it was dangerous." Eli frowned. "Dangerous? What do you mean?" She shook her head. "They didn't tell me."
"Only that my blood wasn't pure." Her voice cracked as she looked at him again.
"They said humans left poison in my family. But he wasn't poison. He saved us." Eli leaned against the wall, thinking. There had been stories long ago. Whispers about humans who stayed behind after the war, working as engineers or medics in alien territory. But the government erased those records. No one spoke of it anymore. "You believe your father was human?" he asked softly. Lyra nodded. "Yes, he fixed ships. He taught me how to make fire. He told me stories about the stars and about people who lived on blue worlds, and then he disappeared." Her voice trembled at the last word. Eli's chest tightened. He didn't know why, but he felt something deep stirring inside him, a connection he couldn't explain. "What happened to your mother?" "She died when I was little," Lyra said. "After that, they sent me to a training camp. But I didn't belong there. They said I was too weak, too strange. They said I looked wrong." She glanced at her reflection in a metal panel, blue skin, faintly human features in her face. "So I ran away. I followed the signal of this outpost because..." She hesitated. "Because I smelled fire and metal. It was the same smell my father had when he came home from work." Eli didn't know what to say. The words fire and metal felt like his life, the scent of burned circuits, grease, and machinery. It was in his clothes, his hands, his breath. Lyra looked at him again. "You smell like him," she said softly. "It's not just a scent. It's something I feel. When you talk, when you move, it reminds me of him." Eli turned away, pretending to check the control panel. "Maybe your memory's confusing things," he muttered. But deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. Hours passed. Eli worked on repairing the power core while Lyra silently followed, handing him tools when he needed them. She was observant, quick to learn, and strangely calm. Every now and then, he caught her looking at the glowing sky through the small viewport, her eyes full of longing. Then the radio crackled. Eli froze. No one had contacted this outpost for weeks. He turned the dial, static at first, then a voice sharp and mechanical. "Unregistered energy signature detected near Sector 9. Possible fugitive alert. Repeat, fugitive of alien origin may be hiding near human-controlled territory." Lyra's eyes widened. "They found me," she whispered. Eli turned off the radio. "You can't stay here," he said quickly. "If they trace that signal, I have nowhere else to go," she cried, grabbing his sleeve. "They'll take me back and lock me in a lab, please." Her voice cracked, and he saw pure fear in her eyes. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of being treated like a thing. He sighed deeply, torn between logic and heart. He knew harboring an alien was a crime, but he also knew he couldn't hand her over. Not after hearing her story. "All right," he said finally. "You'll stay. But we have to hide you better. And if anyone comes asking, you don't speak. Understand?" Lyra nodded quickly, tears glistening on her cheeks. That night, as Eli covered the windows and shut down outside sensors, he found her sitting near the generator again, whispering quietly to her pendant. "What are you saying?" he asked. She looked up shyly. "It's something he taught me. A human word. He said it means hope." Eli frowned. "What word?" "Home." The word hit him like a spark in the dark. He didn't answer. He just sat beside her, listening to the hum of the generator and the quiet breathing of the strange girl who had turned his lonely outpost into something alive again. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was no ordinary meeting. Something from the past was returning through her, and the truth, whatever it was, would soon find them both. The third day began with silence, the kind of silence that felt heavy as if the air itself was listening. Eli woke early, his head full of thoughts about Lyra, her strange story, and the voice on the radio. The outpost had always been quiet, but now every sound seemed sharper, every shadow deeper. He found Lyra sitting by the window, staring at the stars fading behind the rising sun. Her eyes looked distant, as if she was seeing something far away. "You didn't sleep again," he said quietly. She shook her head. "They're coming," Eli froze. "Who?" "My people," she whispered. "I felt the signal last night." "It's close," Eli rubbed his temples. "You mean you can feel them?" Lyra nodded. "All of us are connected through sound waves, through something deeper than speech. When they search, I can sense it. They're looking for me." Eli glanced at the monitor. The radar showed faint movements at the edge of the sector. Too small to be ships, too fast to be random signals. His stomach tightened. "They found your trail," he muttered. Lyra's voice trembled. "If they catch me, they'll take me back to the labs. They'll cut me open to see why I'm different." Eli's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." He stood and began shutting down systems one by one. Lights, sensors, transmitters. The outpost dimmed, swallowed by shadow. Only the faint glow of the generator remained. Lyra watched him move with silent panic. "What are you doing?" "Making us invisible," he said. "If they can't see us on scanners, maybe they'll pass by." She hugged her knees. "You're risking your life for me." "Why?" Eli didn't answer right away. He looked at her. The girl who had walked into his life out of nowhere, fragile but brave, afraid but full of trust. "Because you remind me of something," he said finally. "Someone who still believed peace was possible." Her eyes softened. "My father used to say that too." The words hung in the air like a thread connecting them both. A sudden alarm shattered the quiet. The radar flared bright red. 3 small ships entered the outer atmosphere. Fast, silent, scanning. "They're here," Eli whispered. Lyra's hands shook. "Please don't let them take me." He grabbed his jacket and motioned for her to follow. "Come on. There's an old cargo bay underground. No scanner can read through that metal." "Move!" They ran through narrow corridors, their footsteps echoing in the dim light. Dust rose around them. The whole place groaned under the weight of old age and memory. When they reached the lower bay, Eli pulled open a hatch and guided her inside. The room was cold and dark, filled with old crates and rusted machinery. He sealed the door behind them and powered on a small lamp. Lyra's breathing was shaky. "They won't stop," she said. "They're hunters. Once they smell my trace, they'll search every inch." Eli crouched in front of her. "Then we'll erase it." "You said they track energy signatures, right?" She nodded. "Then I'll flood the field with mine," he said. "Make them think it's all human tech waste." He climbed up to the control panel, rerouting the generators. Sparks flew. The air buzzed as power rerouted through abandoned circuits. Within seconds, the outpost began to hum with new life, like a living creature waking up. Outside, the alien scanners would see nothing but static, heat, and iron. Lyra stared at him in awe. "You know how to hide a whole building?" Eli gave a tired smile. "I've been hiding my whole life." The sound of engines rumbled faintly overhead. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lyra reached for Eli's arm, holding it tight. Through the walls came a low hum, not from machines, but from the ships themselves. Lyra's head tilted. "They're angry," she whispered. "They think humans helped me." Eli frowned. "How can you tell?" "I can hear their thoughts," she said, pressing her hand to her chest. "They say the name of your world like it's poison." Eli's pulse quickened. "Then we have to move before they land." He grabbed a flashlight and led her deeper into the tunnels. The old passageways stretched into darkness, built during the war for secret supply routes. Some led to the surface miles away. As they walked, Lyra asked softly, "Eli, do you think my father really was human?" He looked over his shoulder at her. The lamp's glow danced on her face, on the faint curve of her features, her fragile frame, her hopeful eyes. "I don't know," he said. "But if he was, then he must have been brave to love someone from the other side." Lyra smiled sadly. "He said love was stronger than war. But war always wins. Not always, Eli replied. Sometimes it just takes someone willing to stand against it. The tunnel opened into a hidden maintenance chamber. He shut the hatch behind them. The rumble of ships faded slowly into silence. Lyra slumped against the wall, exhausted. Did we lose them? For now, Eli said. But they'll be back. He sat beside her, breathing hard. The air smelled of dust, oil, and faint heat, the smell of fire and metal. Lyra leaned her head on her knees and whispered, almost dreamlike, "That smell again. My father's smell." Eli didn't reply. He looked at her and wondered what kind of truth tied her fate to his. Somewhere above, engines roared one last time before vanishing into the clouds. But the real danger hadn't passed. It had only begun. And deep inside the tunnels of that forgotten outpost, the line between human and alien was starting to blur. The tunnels were silent except for the soft hum of the emergency lights. Hours had passed since the alien ships left the skies above the outpost. Eli sat near the old generator, his hands trembling slightly from exhaustion. Lyra slept nearby, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her face, though peaceful, looked pale, too pale. Eli frowned. Her breathing was uneven, and her skin shimmered faintly under the dim light. He leaned closer, touching her forehead. It was hot, burning like a fever. "Lyra," he whispered, shaking her gently. "Hey, stay with me," she stirred weakly. "It's my blood," she murmured. "It's reacting to the air here." Eli froze. "Reacting? What do you mean?" She blinked slowly, eyes glowing faintly silver. "I wasn't supposed to breathe this long in human zones. My kind, we're different now. The blood changes." Panic hit Eli. He had no real medicine, only an old medkit from before the war. He opened it, pulling out injectors, scanners, and nutrient packs. As he worked, he saw strange lines appear on her skin, glowing veins faintly golden running up her arms. "What's happening to you?" he muttered. "I don't know," she whispered weakly. "My father used to fix it when it happened. He said it was because I was part something else, part human." Eli guessed, her lips curved into a faint smile. He said that word too. Eli swallowed hard. He couldn't just sit and watch her fade. He grabbed his portable scanner and pressed it against her arm. The screen flickered, showing data streams, and then froze. "Impossible," he whispered. Her blood wasn't like anything he'd ever seen. It wasn't purely alien. Hidden between strands of alien DNA were human sequences, clearly, unmistakably human. The device struggled to process the mixture, flashing warnings and error codes. Eli sat back, stunned. You really are half human." Lyra's eyes fluttered open. "You believe me now?" He nodded slowly. "More than that. I think your father was one of the engineers who stayed behind after the war. He must have worked on alien tech. Maybe he fell in love." Lyra smiled weakly. "He used to tell me stories about the stars, about people with hearts made of fire. He said humans were loud but kind. He said they smell of life." Eli's throat tightened. "Then he was one of us. And they punished you for it." She nodded slightly. "They called me a stain." "A mistake," he clenched his fists. "You're not a mistake. You're proof that both sides can be more than what they were told." The generator flickered behind them, throwing warm light over her face. For the first time, Eli noticed how her features blended. The sharp lines of alien grace softened by something unmistakably human. He mixed a small solution of oxygen stabilizers and nutrient serum, hoping it would balance her body. "This might hurt," he warned. She smiled faintly. "Pain means I'm still alive." He injected the serum carefully. Lyra gasped, arching her back as golden veins pulsed once, then slowly dimmed. Her breathing steadied. The fever began to drop. Eli exhaled in relief. "You'll be fine," he said quietly. She looked up at him with half-lidded eyes. "Why are you helping me, Eli? You don't even know me," he hesitated. "Because you remind me of why I became an engineer. To fix broken things." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "Then fix this world too." He looked away, his chest heavy with guilt and wonder. As she rested, he turned to the old outpost console. He searched through buried records, encrypted logs, forgotten transmissions. One caught his attention, dated 20 years ago. It mentioned a human named Captain Aaron Voss, stationed in alien territory for peace engineering. Last recorded message: "If I don't return, remember, our daughter must live free." Eli stared at the name. The man had vanished near the same region where Lyra said she was born. "Your father," he whispered. Lyra stirred. "What about him?" "I think I found his record," Eli said softly. He was human. A captain who stayed behind during the truce mission. His name was Aaron Voss. Her eyes widened, tears welling up. That's him. My mother said his name once, Aaron." Eli's heart pounded. "Then it's true. You're his daughter, part of both worlds." Lyra sat up slowly, trembling. "They killed him because he loved her," she said bitterly. "Because he loved a woman they called the enemy." Eli looked down. "Then they'll come for you too, to erase what you stand for." She nodded. "Unless we show them the truth." He met her gaze. "And how do we do that?" She held up her pendant. The cracked gem inside began to glow faintly. "This isn't just jewelry. It holds my father's last message. He said when I find a human who smells like him, he'll help me finish what he started." Eli stared, speechless. "Maybe," she whispered. "You're that human." Eli didn't know what to say, but deep inside, he felt it. The connection that had pulled them together wasn't an accident. It was fate, written long before they met. Outside, thunder rolled across the dead plains. The storm was returning, and with it danger. But Eli no longer felt alone. He looked at Lyra, her pendant glowing softly in the dark, and said, "Then let's find out what your father left behind." The storm outside howled like a wounded beast. Wind slammed against the metal roof of the outpost, and dust clouds rolled across the wasteland. Inside, Eli packed supplies into an old backpack, ration bars, batteries, a water filter, and the cracked datapad containing the file on Captain Aaron Voss. Lyra stood beside him, still weak but alert. The faint golden lines beneath her skin had faded, leaving her looking almost human in the dim light. The pendant around her neck glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. "We can't stay here," Eli said, strapping the pack shut. "If those ships come back, they'll scan deeper. And if the humans find this signal first, we'll both be arrested." Lyra nodded. "Then where do we go?" He looked toward the horizon through a cracked viewport. Beyond the barren plains lay a canyon, an old mining route that led to the neutral zone. "South," he said. "There's a relay tower near the edge of the neutral border. If we reach it, we can send your father's data to both governments. If they see proof of what he did, maybe they'll stop hunting you." Lyra's eyes shone with quiet hope. "Then we show them the truth." Eli nodded. "But it won't be easy." They left the outpost just before dawn. The landscape was endless and gray, filled with old wrecks from a war no one talked about anymore. Metal bones of fallen ships jutted from the sand like tombstones. The wind carried a low hum, ancient engines whispering their ghosts. Lyra walked beside him silently, her steps light, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She looked fragile, but her determination burned bright. After hours of walking, they reached the remains of an old fuel station. Eli paused, scanning the area. The air smelled of rust and ozone. "We'll rest here," he said. But before they could sit, Lyra froze. Her ears twitched slightly, her pupils narrowing. "Someone's coming." Eli turned, hand on his pistol. Dust swirled in the distance, 3 hovercrafts, military grade, moving fast. "Human patrols," he muttered. "Damn it." Lyra's eyes widened. "Your own kind?" "They'll shoot first, ask later," he said. "To them, you're an enemy experiment, and I'm a traitor." The engines roared closer. Eli grabbed her wrist. "Run!" They sprinted across the plain. The wind tore at their faces, sand biting at their skin. Laser beams scorched the ground behind them, leaving trails of fire and smoke. Eli fired back blindly, his weapon weak against their heavy armor. "Down there!" he shouted, spotting a fissure in the earth ahead. They dove inside just as a beam exploded nearby, shaking the ground. The crack led into a narrow ravine, deep and dark. They slid down the slope, landing hard in the shadowed trench below. The hovercrafts hovered overhead, scanning the ground. Eli held his breath. Lyra pressed her pendant to her chest, whispering in her alien tongue. The light from it dimmed, masking her life signal. After a long moment, The ships drifted away, their engines fading into the distance. Eli exhaled slowly. That was too close. Lyra leaned against the wall, trembling. "They're not the only ones," she whispered. He frowned. "What do you mean?" "They're coming too. My people." She closed her eyes. "They've found the outpost. They'll follow our trail soon." Eli cursed under his breath. "So now we're hunted from both sides." She nodded weakly. "Because of what's inside this pendant." He looked at the small crystal hanging from her neck. "Your father's message?" "Yes. He said it could change everything. It has codes, evidence of what he built. Proof that humans and my kind were never meant to be enemies." Eli's mind raced. If both sides knew that, they'd kill to bury it. "That's why he hid it in me," she said softly. "He said one day a human would carry it the rest of the way." Eli met her gaze. "Then we finish what he started." The path ahead was rough and narrow, but Eli helped her up. They moved deeper through the canyon as lightning flickered across the sky. Thunder rolled like distant artillery. As they walked, Lyra spoke quietly. "When I was little, my father said humans and my people shared the same kind of heart. One that breaks easily, but keeps beating anyway." Eli smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong. They finally reached a ridge overlooking a ruined transport hub, the old relay tower half buried in sand. But the sight made Eli's heart sink. 2 ships were already parked nearby. 1 human, 1 alien. "They beat us here," he said. Lyra's hand tightened around his arm. "Then we'll go through them." Eli glanced at her. The small, trembling girl who had once been afraid of the dark now stood ready to face 2 armies. Something inside him shifted. "All right," he said quietly. "No more running." He loaded his weapon, the storm raging behind them, and together they stepped out of the canyon, 2 figures against the war of worlds. The chase was no longer about survival. It was about truth. And they were done hiding from it. The relay tower loomed ahead like a broken skeleton rising from the sand. Rusted beams reached for the sky, and shattered panels swayed in the wind. Lightning flashed behind it, painting the ruins in silver light. Eli and Lyra crouched behind a ridge, watching the 2 ships parked near the base, one bearing human markings, the other pulsing with alien blue symbols. "They're not fighting," Lyra whispered. "They're waiting." Eli adjusted his scope. "Maybe they're both after the same thing, your pendant." Lyra clutched it protectively. "Then we can't let them have it. My father said it holds the key to peace. But I think it's more than that." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned the pendant in her hand. "He said it carries his memories. Everything he saw, everything he built. Even his last moments." Eli's heart tightened. Then whatever's inside, it's his voice. His truth. They waited until night fell. The storm eased into silence, and the guards near the ships began to sleep. Eli signaled her to follow, and they crept down the ridge. Each step crunched softly against the sand. The air smelled of ozone and burnt metal, the smell of 2 worlds colliding. Inside the tower, dust floated like ghosts in the dim light. The console still worked, faintly powered by a buried generator. Eli connected his data pad, fingers flying across the screen. "If we can boost the signal through this old network, we can activate the pendant's code." Lyra held out the pendant. It glowed softly as he placed it in the console slot. A faint hum filled the room, like a heartbeat waking after years of silence. Initializing sequence, the screen read. Then, a voice. Faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. "If you're hearing this, I'm Captain Aaron Voss. The war is over, but peace was never written in the treaties. It was written in the lives we shared." Lyra gasped. "Father." Eli stood still, the sound echoing through the cold chamber. "I stayed behind because I saw what others couldn't. The enemy I fought beside became my family. I fell in love with one of them. Her name was Sarai. She gave me hope. And a daughter." Lyra's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. They'll call her a mistake. They'll call her impossible. But she's the future, proof that both hearts can beat as one. If they find her, they'll try to destroy her because she exposes the lie that keeps this war alive. Eli clenched his fists. The message felt like a blade cutting through years of hate. To whoever finds this, protect her. Her name is Lyra. She carries both worlds inside her blood. And my final gift, the peace genome, a code that can heal the damage between our species. Eli's eyes widened. A genome? Lyra turned to him. That's why they hunted me. It's not just memories. It's part of him, part of both of us. The console beeped, scanning her pendant's data. Symbols and strands of code filled the screen. Half were alien, half human, merging into one perfect sequence. Eli whispered. He combined human DNA with alien regenerative strands. It could neutralize the toxins that made our species incompatible. Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. He wanted to make peace not through words, but through life. Outside, a sudden roar of engines shook the tower. Bright lights swept through the windows. They found us. Eli grabbed the pendant and disconnected it. Lyra's glow dimmed in fear. We can't let them take it. He looked around quickly. There's an old lift shaft behind the generator. Go. I'll hold them off. No, she cried, grabbing his arm. He said protect me, not die for me. Eli smiled sadly. Your father believed in peace. Someone has to make sure the world hears him. The doors burst open. Soldiers from both factions stormed in, shouting orders. Blinding lights filled the room. Lyra screamed, covering her ears as the sound waves hit her sensitive senses. Eli fired back, ducking behind a beam. Run, Lyra, go! She hesitated, tears streaming down her face. We then clutched the pendant and bolted for the back corridor. Blaster fire burned across the metal walls. Eli fought to cover her, heart pounding, lungs burning. He could hear her voice echoing down the tunnel. Don't you dare die, Eli! He smiled faintly through the chaos. Not yet. Lyra disappeared into the dark, her pendant glowing like a tiny star. The soldiers chased, but Eli triggered the tower's power core, flooding the structure with static interference. The screens blazed white and every light went out. When the smoke cleared, the human and alien troops stood confused, shouting into their radios. The message had already transmitted, fragments of Captain Voss's voice now echoing across multiple frequencies, spreading far beyond their control. Eli collapsed behind a pillar, smiling weakly. You did it, old man, he whispered. You made them listen. Far away in the desert night, Lyra ran under the lightning sky, clutching the pendant to her chest. She could still hear her father's last words echoing in her mind. Peace isn't built by armies. It's built by hearts brave enough to love across the stars. And in that moment she knew. The truth had finally been set free. The desert burned gold under the rising twin suns. Wind carried the smell of ozone and smoke from the night's battle. Broken pieces of the relay tower still glowed faintly behind Lyra as she stumbled across the sands, her pendant clutched tightly against her chest. Each step hurt, but she didn't stop. Somewhere behind her, Eli was still out there, wounded, maybe alive, maybe not. She refused to believe he was gone. Ahead lay the neutral border, a long metallic barrier stretching like a scar across the wasteland. On one side waited the human patrols. On the other, the alien sentinels, her people. Neither would let her cross alive. But she didn't need to cross. She only needed to be seen. The pendant pulsed faintly in her hand as if urging her forward. Her father's message was already spreading through the airwaves. Now she had to make sure they listened. Behind her, the sound of an engine broke through the wind. Lyra turned, her heart leaping. Eli's old hoverbike was racing across the dunes. He was alive. His jacket was torn, his face covered in soot, but his eyes were fierce. I told you to keep running, he shouted over the roar as he stopped beside her. I told you not to die, she shot back, half smiling through her tears. He laughed weakly. Fair enough. Now get on. She climbed behind him, holding tight as the bike tore toward the border. In the distance, both armies had begun to gather. Lines of armored troops, engines ready, weapons glowing. The broadcast from the tower had reached them. They knew she was here. What are we doing? Lyra shouted. Eli's voice was steady, calm. Making them see what peace looks like. As they neared the center of the border, warning sirens screamed. Voices boomed through loudspeakers, both human and alien. Stop immediately. You are trespassing in restricted territory. Return the hybrid and surrender the human. Eli slowed the bike and stopped right between the two armies. The air crackled with tension. He raised his hands, then looked at Lyra. It's your turn now. Lyra's hands trembled, but she stepped forward. The pendant glowed brighter, reacting to the signals from both sides. She took a deep breath and pressed her fingers to it. A light shot upward, forming a massive hologram in the sky, the recorded message from Captain Aaron Voss. His voice echoed across the battlefield, reaching both armies at once. If you're hearing this, then you stand where I once stood, between two worlds. You've spent lifetimes fighting over what makes you different, but you've forgotten what makes you the same. Silence swept across the plain. Soldiers lowered their weapons, watching the shimmering figure of the human who had once vanished into legend. I loved one of them. I fought beside her, and I learned that peace isn't something written in laws. It's written in the children who carry our blood. The hologram flickered, showing an image of Lyra as a baby in alien arms, her skin faintly glowing with both human warmth and alien light. This is my daughter, Lyra Voss. If she stands before you now, then it means I failed to end this war. But she hasn't. Protect her. Listen to her, because she is both of you. The light faded slowly, leaving the battlefield in stunned silence. Lyra lowered the pendant, her voice trembling as she shouted, I am not your enemy. I am proof that neither of you ever were. My father died for this truth. Will you kill me for it too? The human commander stepped forward, his weapon still aimed but shaking. If that message is real, then everything we've been told. An alien officer interrupted from the other side. A lie. Our council erased him. They feared what he created. Eli stood beside her, his voice strong. You can keep fighting over ghosts, or you can start building something better. The commanders looked at each other across the field. No one moved. Then slowly the human lowered his weapon. Stand down, he ordered. The alien leader hesitated, then nodded to his troops. Their weapons powered down. The wind carried the sound of silence, heavy, strange, beautiful. Lyra looked around, hardly believing it. They're stopping. Eli smiled faintly. Your father's words did what armies couldn't. She turned to him, eyes full of tears. And you helped me finish what he started. But then she saw the wound on his side, dark, spreading fast. Eli, she cried, catching him as he stumbled. He smiled weakly. Guess I'm not as tough as I thought. Don't you dare leave me now, she whispered. He touched the pendant with trembling fingers. You'll keep it safe, and tell them our story, right? Lyra nodded, her tears falling on his hand. I promise, he gave one last tired smile. Good, because now they'll listen. His hand went still. The twin suns rose higher, bathing the sand in gold. Soldiers from both sides gathered around, watching in silence as Lyra knelt beside the human who had saved her. For the first time in generations, neither side fired a shot. Weeks later, a memorial stood at the site of the border. It bore two symbols, human and alien, carved together into the same stone. Beneath it were the words Eli had once said to her. Peace isn't built by power. It's built by hearts brave enough to love across the stars. And under the light of twin suns, Lyra Voss, daughter of two worlds, stood before the monument and whispered, I kept your promise, Father. And yours, Eli. The war is over.